back to the HR Exchange podcast. My name is David Rice. As always, I'm your host for these things and the editor of the HR Exchange Network. I'm joined today by Detlef Hold. He is the head of digital learning experience at pharmaceutical and healthcare giant Roche. So welcome, Detlef. Sorry.
That was good. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. I'm a little all over the place today, but nature of the current workplace, right?
Yeah, no, that's so true.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk, you're going to be doing a session at our upcoming HR and Future of Work APAC event. And so I wanted, your session is going to be focused kind of on applying data into creating experiences, and the employee experience is obviously something that we're all thinking about right now. And so as we look to data for a lot of, if we look at, what a day. All right.
David, that's all digital. I think that's part of it, right? We're all in our living rooms, and then we try to do a good job.
I'm like, I've got stuff going on in the background. Okay, so here we go. So, all right. So we look to data a lot these days, is what I was going to say. But one of the things I think a lot of people are looking to do this year is apply data to the employee experience. And within that, I'm quite interested to understand how you're using data to improve learning experiences. What are some of the big trends in this area? How do you see that changing over the next few years, that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'll say we've been learning ourselves over the last 3-4 years, really. There are colleagues of mine who spend all their time reading people analytics. And one of the things they tried out is, for example, how does commute influence satisfaction of people at work? Because if your commute is long, that was a topic at the time before COVID. Now, we would ask, what's your virtual experience like? And then figure out how we can improve that. And I think that's a typical use of data today when we talk about experience. There always used to be the idea that we need to find out the satisfaction of people about a course or some kind of learning event they were part of. And then the other was probably also, okay, how much can I apply? So you might ask them, how clear was the knowledge transferred? How good were the conversations and so on? How easy was it to connect? So there's satisfaction and there's applying the knowledge and learning, two aspects. What I think was really added is, and social media was kind of the front runner in this, is to have more data points about people's experience in learning. So there's a strong focus on really finding out what learning experience people have today in the virtual setting when they're part of a webinar or a meeting where you try to solve problems together and try out new tools, for example. And in that space, I think one of the things that has emerged is really the idea of adaptive and personalized learning. And so we try to have more data points to better respond to people's needs. And then we adjust the design of maybe an influencing session, or we adjust the use of the tools. So there are more feedback loops, I think, that help us to do a better job in design. And then also to do a better job in meeting the needs of people. Maybe they don't want to spend half an hour, maybe they just have 5 minutes. And so that led to micro-learning and the chunking of learning and so on. And adaptive learning is one of the trends I see clearly emerging. There are platforms similar to like the social media experience with Amazon, where over time, the algorithm gives you recommendations on what's your current level, what's the level you need for your next job, and what kind of skills and knowledge you need to build through content and conversations and the job itself, of course. So that kind of personalization is definitely a trend, technology enabled, but also through social collaboration, tapping into people's wisdom really through connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then maybe just one last point is I think you can also gain efficiencies through data, because all the data points that we can generate today from people directly, from platforms, from the processes they're involved in at work, helps us to continuously improve how we do think, how we approach and how we design, and how we are sure that the products and the solutions we're creating actually are well received and impact people's performance. So that's a few things I see, and also trends really around adaptive and personalized and technology enabled.
Yeah, it's interesting. You started off talking about the commute there, and I think about how much just not having that has changed my routine and my kind of habits. I still consume a lot of things, like
Yeah.
podcasts and stuff like that, but I do it much differently than I used to. And I think everybody's kind of like that. It's always different when you just shift your routine just a little bit, the times you have for things. So that's interesting.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's an adaptive experience. I guess, you have to adapt to how people are behaving in whatever time you're trying to get them.
Yeah, that's certainly one aspect as well. Adaptive could mean another point in time, either in the morning or the evening. It can certainly mean that you can focus on people's skill level on the one hand, but the other is also their readiness. It's different when you come into a company totally new, or if you move from one part of a company to another part of the company. Your starting point is just different. So that's where the adaptive, I think, really becomes interesting to speed up that process of productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that your session will kind of look to focus on, I think, based on what I read
Mm-hmm.
about it, is kind of how data capabilities and employee experience go hand in hand. So can you kind of map out that relationship for us in terms of how they sort of drive each other?
Yeah, I was almost alluding to it already in the examples I'd given at the beginning. Um, there is, I think, the strongest relationship is really the continuous feedback circles that we can build. On the one hand, is your experience to be part of a virtual session like the one we're going to have at a conference. On
Mhm.
the other hand, is then the data that we get out of observing, asking how it was, but also participation, engagement levels. All of this is data you can use to then continuously improve through the feedback loops. So I think they're intertwined really. There's the one informs the other. The experience gets better through data, and you learn through people's responses as well what data to pay attention to. Because at the beginning, it's about asking questions. And the questions you ask will inform what kind of data you focus on. Like, is it satisfaction? Or is it today belonging, like feeling included? That could be another aspect. Or is it the level of empathy that was present in a session for you? So you might actually pay attention to other aspects of the experience of people because you can generate data and then learn through that. And it shifts your attention to where the biggest value is for people, really.
Yeah, I think there's so many things we can measure now
Mm.
that we definitely should. uh,
Yeah.
so when I think about things that are kind of you experience, like when we think about experience,
Mm-hmm.
things like journey maps, empathy maps, we can gain a better understanding of the overall employee experience through these things. But for someone who's maybe never dug into these tools and really use them themselves, can you kind of describe what sort of data they're providing and the insights that we can gain from them?
Yeah, great question. There's an effort in our organization right now to enhance customer centricity. And so we look at a lot of the methodologies and tools available for customer centricity. And that actually informs the conversation and learning as well. So when you map out what it is like to go shopping online through Amazon, well, you start by actually accessing to the platform, and then how easy it is to find something, and how easy it is to have the right recommendation they give you, and then how easy it is to pay, and then once you paid, how easy it is to get things delivered and so on. So literally, you map out the journey in front of you. Usually, we don't do that because it just happens, and if it's a good experience, well, great, we move on, and we think, well, that was efficient. And so the customer journey is something that helps you to focus on the real experience people have. And at work, that means what kind of tasks are people focusing on, really? And how much time do they spend on searching information to understand a process or figuring out who to work with and who my stakeholders are? And so we get a more granular understanding of the real work people are doing and the pain points they have. and also the kind of opportunities for growth, which might or might not exist when they do a task in an assignment. And so the customer journey is your starting point to really understand the reality of what work is for people from their perspective. And so the learner journey maps do something similar, just from the learning perspective. And tools like empathy maps, which I love really, help you to go into people's mind and heart. They really help you to not only observe someone who goes through that kind of journey, as the one I was describing, but if you translate that to learning, it's kind of, okay, I have to sign up somewhere. Man, the sign up was really painful. And then I didn't get a confirmation. Can I actually attend or not? And then the information about the webinar wasn't that clear. And then once you join, there was so many hiccups. And so you can actually also map out that kind of learner journey towards even applying some of the knowledge that we provide at work, and then see how productive people are and how impactful it is. So you map out the learner journey of someone by observing and asking and exploring what they do, what they feel, and what they think as they are doing the work. And that is really a new perspective we bring in, which is much richer and very close to the real experience someone has. So the journey maps in learning actually mirror the customer journey maps, and both of them inform your design and your choices in the best learning solutions. That's what I love about it. It's very close to reality.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I think this move towards virtual work has us all looking at how people access information, how they, communicate, collaborate, share data, share everything. We're thinking about it in different ways. So it's interesting to hear that from the learning perspective and kind of refining how easy it is to get training. I think it's something that that a lot of organizations are trying to address this year.
That's right. So which has led to some people, many companies pivoting to full virtual. And we discuss actually, are we going to go back to classroom, or and I guess the conclusion is that most people say it's going to be blended, like a bit of physical, a lot of virtual, because the scalability is just amazing, and the reach.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am hearing some of the same things, the blend. I think a lot of people do want to take that approach. They don't necessarily want to lose all of the in-person interaction, but I think we're all seeing the effectiveness of some of this virtual stuff.
Yeah.
And, it all seemed so futuristic not that long ago, right? So, and now it's like the reality. So when we look to the future, there's a fair amount of thought that needs to be poured into kind of redesigning the workforce, so to speak, be it through better succession planning, workforce assessments, upskilling, that kind of stuff. So how are you seeing data used to kind of reshape roles and redefine the skills needed for work?
So maybe a nice fit is what's currently happening around the world. I think the gig economy idea has started a while ago, where people find interesting assignments and they are part of a company for a while. They may be part of two companies at the same time, or they move around quicker than before. Certainly the next gen is used to being very mobile, and they have much more choice, I think, and also probably also the pain of sometimes deciding where to go. But what has emerged from the gig economy is what's now called the talent flow market, or talent marketplace. And the idea is really that people will more likely not be in one role anymore, but it's broadening up. So you might have one or two or three different tasks in different projects at the same time, and you move from one to the other very fluidly in an organization. It gives you more flexibility. The organization has a bigger talent pool, and at the same time, for people, bigger opportunities for individual growth. And I think that the data that we can generate in that system can actually inform a number of things. One is, how effective is this flowing to gigs in an organization, and even beyond an organization, in collaborations and partnerships. And the other is, it can inform even strategic workforce planning over time. Where do you need more people? Where less? What are the changes? And those happen faster than before in this agile environment. And the third piece is, I think we will be able to generate data that informs the specific skills people need to build over time for a variety of tasks. So this is where the individual benefit comes in, because it not only helps me to do a good job in a number of different and more variety of tasks, but it also strengthens my own employability in the market. Yeah. I kind of build what I need over time as I go along my journey, and then I feel really equipped to the next gig, or if there's a change in my organization, it might be easier for me to flow to something different.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, as more technology gets involved, we all kind of see it coming down the road where like it's going to create a whole lot of new skills that maybe right now a lot of our organizations don't have in them. And you mentioned the gig economy there. It'll be interesting to see, like you said, the effectiveness of that.
Yeah. Good point.
So, I kind of wanted to ask you one last question. It was, Roche is a company whose mission is very future focused. And so as someone who is tasked with driving their learning experience, how do you ensure that what you're offering matches that sort of company identity?
Yeah. It is a very future focused company, and it's a science driven company.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that there's so much focus on innovation. Mm-hmm. And looking at, I think, the way to figure out how to be close and aligned is probably through 3 different mechanisms. The first one is start with the end in mind. So whatever I try to solve or to respond to, I do go as close as I can to the business where the work happens, and then try to understand the reality, and from there identify the pain points, not just through surveys or a needs assessment from platforms, but actually being part of where the teams work and the processes they use. So starting point is really in the reality of the work. That helps me to really make sure that whatever we develop is aligned, and then we can adjust, if the work reality changes, like as it does right now with digitalization, fundamentally changes. Second mechanism is conversations, continuous dialogue with stakeholders to what I call validation of checking in, see, are we on track? And I think the move to agile with much more iterations early on and including stakeholders certainly helps with that. What Apple has done over many years and others in product development becomes a standard in learning as well now, these iterations. And the third aspect is what I call the value check. As we're building solutions, I continuously have a frequency to say, okay, is this really value that makes sense based on some criteria for the company? It can be innovation, it can be effectiveness or efficiencies, or it can be just engaging people in a new way of collaborating. So the value check for me is the third mechanism I personally found very, very useful to align. 3 things.
Yeah. Well, that's a good approach. Well, that is all the questions I have for you today. I do appreciate you giving us some of your time. And we're looking forward to your session today, HR and Future of Work APAC.
Thank you, David. It was great talking to you. And I look forward to the conference. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. If you want more information on HR and Future of Work APAC, do visit hrexchangenetwork.com. We've got the whole agenda on there. You can check out Detlef's session as well as others. So be on the lookout for that. There'll be more announcements coming out over LinkedIn and other social media platforms as well. So until next time, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, good. Enjoy your day.